Just a year ago, they were sworn enemies. Now they seem like old friends. US President Barack Obama and Cuban President Raul Castro met at the UN General Assembly with smiles and a handshake, the first sit-down between leaders of the US and Cuba on American soil in more than 50 years. But behind closed doors, there's still much to be done to normalize relations. Cuba's Foreign Minister, Bruno Rodriguez Parilla, briefed the world's media on the historic meeting and said the US trade embargo must be lifted.
The Cuban president reiterated that for Cuba and the United States to be able to have normal relations, the blockade or embargo that has caused damages and hardships to the Cuban people and affects the interests of American citizens should be lifted. And the territory occupied by the US naval base in Guantanamo should be returned to Cuba.
While the US president was able to restore diplomatic relations and reopen the embassy in Havana, lifting the trade embargo will require an act of the US Congress, and that is not likely anytime soon. But travel and other restrictions are being eased, and the US is sending its Commerce Secretary to Cuba for talks next week on re-establishing business ties.
For 50 years, the United States pursued a Cuba policy that failed to improve the lives of the Cuban people. We changed that.
In his speech to the United Nations, President Obama admitted US-Cuba policy had been wrong for 50 years, with the first anniversary of the diplomatic breakthrough nearing. Ending years of hostility will not happen overnight. But the diplomatic thaw between the two countries has been an example here at the United Nations all week, that after decades of distrust, two countries can come and settle some of their differences. Perhaps an example for many other nations to follow. Nathan King, CCTV at the United Nations in New York.